my name is Tom Sciacca, and I am a trust and estates attorney here in New York City. Also, as part of my practice, I do a lot of volunteer work with SAGE, including running their legal clinic, which includes people coming to ask me for questions concerning legal affairs. And also we do a life planning clinic where people come in and we talk about wills, powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, and living wills, and a variety of other documents that really affect people in our community and allow them to do some advocacy for themselves, which I'm really a big fan of. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about wills, what they are, why they're important, and specifically why they're important for us in the LGBT community. Let's start with what they are. A will is a document whereby a person called a testator makes a disposition of his or her assets upon their death. Let's say it's my will. I can sit down here today and write my will, and it's going to include a lot of information. However, my will is a useless piece of paper until I drop dead, which guess what, we all eventually do. When I do drop dead, that will is going to have some legal effects, okay? What are some things that are going to be in that will? First, it's going to make a disposition of my assets. Second, it's going to name one or more persons to serve as executor, the person who's in charge of running the whole affair, the quarterback, if you will. And third, it may contain some provisions concerning the disposition of my remains. What does that mean in English? It's going to mean whether I wish to be buried or cremated and all of the decisions ancillary to that. And let's talk a little bit about each of those in some detail now. First, what's going to happen to my stuff, my property when I die? Well, if you don't write a will, guess what? The state in which you live has taken the liberty of writing a will for you. This is not the state trying to, sneak in and steal your money under the cover of the night, although we certainly know some legislatures who might do that. However, what they're trying to do is say, listen, if Tom sat down and wrote a will, what would he have written? They're trying to guess what I would have done. Unfortunately, what that means is that they are going to favor my blood relatives, which may or may not be what I want, and especially in our community, it may not be a problem if the people with whom we are in relationships, often long-term relationships, are not a legal spouse, as that term is defined by the law of our state and unfortunately currently our nation. So, who are those people? For example, in New York State, if I were to die, everything would go to my spouse, then to my children or my more remote descendants, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc. If I didn't have any of those people, it would be my parents, then my brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, and actually, if we wanted to carry it all the way out, it would go to my first cousins and my first cousins once removed, which are the children of my first cousins, and sometimes maybe people I have never even heard of. Some states recognize same-sex marriage. If you are fortunate enough and you're in a relationship where you live in one of those states, that person can be treated as a spouse. If you live in a state that has an affirmative ban on same-sex marriage, that is not going to be recognized for that purpose. And sometimes we live in hybrid states, for example, like New York, where we don't have affirmative same-sex marriage, but our courts have recognized the marriages from other jurisdictions where they do, such as Massachusetts or Connecticut, for example. So, why is all of this important? It's important for two reasons. First, you need to decide whether or not you need a will, because if you don't have a will, all of your assets are going to go to those people. Maybe you're comfortable with that, maybe you're not. The second thing that's very important is all of those people who would inherit if you died without a will all have standing, which is a fancy word for the legal right to challenge your will. It's very important that we identify these people as well. Once I sit down and write a will, however, I can take matters into my own hands and override this default. I can leave everything to my partner or to some family members and not others, or for example to my family of choice, which may be very, very important to me. I can also take some time to, for example, consider avoiding the probate process altogether if I know there is going to be a problem. The two final things that you need to consider is first, who's going to be your executor, which again can be the person of your choice, as opposed to your next of kin. And finally, the last thing you can decide is what happens to your remains, whether you wish to be buried or cremated. Trust me, I've been in court to try to get a temporary restraining order to prevent a burial for someone who's always wanted to be cremated. It is expensive, not fun, and not what you want to be doing after the death of a loved one. By taking this opportunity now, you can save the heartache for your loved ones later on. Thank you for your attention.